YouTube, we're back. Brian Phillips here with the Airbus A380 build video series. I think this might be part number 8. We left off last with some cable management, and today what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and get this fuse assembled short of the rudder. The vertical stabilizer and rudder, because that's going to be probably a video of its own. And this might go quick, and if it does, then we'll do some more. So, if we end up moving that, that'll probably be part of the landing gear project, because we'll be able to gain access to it still. And then, just in looking at this airplane body, I'm just trying to understand one detail here, and that is when I get ready to do lighting on this airplane, if I do, and to what degree I do, lighting is always up for grabs, and it's always dependent on how good the plane is, particularly how good it looks in a scale application like this. For instance, like with the Airbus A380-600, I added some wing inspection light, or some logo lights that shine up on the onto the vertical stabilizer and rudder. And well, and by the way, guys, I painted all that by hand right there. The servo's black, of course, and so I'm going to probably end up having to do that today on that rudder. But I just always think these things through before I start gluing surfaces together. So obviously in this case I think we're going to be okay, because what we can do is I'm just thinking about what angle I would have to hit this at with a hot wire to get my light in there. Because here's the thing, it's not a hollow in here. It's not like I can go straight into the fuse. So I might gain a little bit by being able to shoot some wiring through and then melt the channel here, and then I can pull the wires in. Well, look at that. That's interesting. There's holes in there. I don't remember seeing any carbon fiber spars or anything. I wonder if there's some spars that I'm missing. They sure don't show anything in the drawings. Well, anyway, the point is this. Oh, we got to put these things on too. The point of what I'm saying is, if you can avoid some trouble later by getting your wiring channels installed now, it's probably not a bad idea. But if it's not going to gain you anything, just get it assembled. It's good to have those easy steps done. Okay, so you can tell which way the dihedral is supposed to go, and sometimes it helps if you put them side by side like this. Okay, that might have been how they had them attached in the mold. Looks like they must have painted it with that clear stuff. Okay, so we're going to use the mucilage to hold these in place. Okay. So we'll go ahead and get that little piece of foam shot through. And now that we're kind of looking at this together, I can give you a closer look at this. These teeth are actually very effective. So you wouldn't have to use glue, but you just slip this down and it clicks as it goes, just like a zip tie would. Okay, so let's get some glue and do that. Okay, so we're going to use mucilage, the large size. And we'll just do a little bit of glue. Of course, you'll want to work your hinges if you haven't already done that. I just go a little bit in the middle there. And that's just a insurance policy for if the clips would fail. That's what I mean by work the control surface. This also helps you to establish, oh, look at that. There are hinges in here, guys. See, hinge, hinge, hinge. So there's 3 hinges in there. Cool. So I don't have to worry about that. They should be nice and sturdy. That's not expected. but I'll take it. Okay, so now this wants to go forward. Make sure your dihedral's the right way. Go ahead and drop this down. Okay, so you see I'm kind of making a mess there. So what you want to do is, that stuff should roll right off, but if it doesn't, you can use some kicker, and that stuff will come off your fingers, but I usually just try to roll it up. But sometimes it helps if you use a tool like this, you can grab onto that, push forward a little bit. So we're clipped on there perfectly fine now. And those are really good, sturdy control arms. I like those. Okay, so we'll pause it and do the other side and come right back. Okay, so now that you've got those things ready to go, we're going to be putting these in. Now you'll notice I've got this sitting on a pillow, which works generally pretty good on stuff like this, because it'll kind of, the wing box will sit around the pillow a little bit. Now this is going to ultimately need to slide in here, and so to avoid having a huge mess, I'm going to actually only apply glue on the inside this time, and there'll still be some that seeps out, but it'll be easy to manage. So we're going to do this. And this is one of those steps where it's tempting to just kind of slop it together, but it's kind of an important one, because if you do it wrong, you'll lose control of the plane if one comes off. So predominantly we'll want that glue on the inside there. We'll just do a pretty heavy bead of it. Stuff's super stringy, so. And then the second thing we'll do is we'll actually use a fresh Q-tip to spread that, and we'll just go right up to the corner. We're not going to go too crazy. If you go all the way up the sidewall, that glue will for sure shoot out when you put your horizontal stabilizer in there. I did not get enough glue in there. We're going to do a little bit more. Alright, so here goes nothing. So get in there and spread that stuff. Just so it's up into the corner. Oops. Don't want to get it on the finish out here if you can avoid it. If you do accidentally get a little bit on the finish, deal with it right away. Don't let that set. Get a clean Q-tip, go over the top of it, and just let it come off like that in strings. So now that's cleaned off, especially there with that cool silver detail. Now, it's tempting to want to control or get these all plugged together right now, but you'll be able to do it after the fact. It's going to be a little bit more challenging, but you don't know exactly where you're going to end up with it. So now this time I'll do just a little bit on the face of this one, and I'm just going to go real thin coat. And instead of spreading it a lot, I'll just do the minimal once over sort of treatment here. And you'll be amazed how crazy this stuff holds. Roll it just onto the edge in the face there. Don't go around, don't wrap to the sides, because you'll have a huge mess on your hands. Okay? So now just verify your dihedral direction, which you can see how this is like this. Okay? Okay, so, and that's crazy, I can barely even stick it in there because of that glue. It's in there now. See how it's trying to bend and deteriorate that finisher, so you be careful. Now I could get that out if I wanted to right now, but I'd probably damage something. So the nice thing is we don't have to tape this in, because you're going to not want to tape on any of this blue. It will come off for sure. I'll guarantee it will. So be careful about that finish. Even around this edge as you're playing with it and just kind of getting things sized in, you want to really avoid getting, you know, in and out too many times. You'll rip this stuff up. As you can see on mine, it's starting to rip up too. If I recall, I had to touch that up on both Airbuses. And these are the wet applied decals, I believe. They're obviously not a vinyl sticker, which is, they keep the weight down, but they're also, I think they look nice, but it's just funny because they didn't do a very good job with the decal details, but they did a pretty decent job with getting them on there. They're not perfectly square or anything, but you can't expect perfection on a model this size. It's just, especially not for the price point. I would love it if it was perfect, but it's not gonna be. Okay, so same exact drill. And that being said, you've seen the other side, so we'll pause it and come right back when this one's done. Alright guys, so one detail I wanted to pass along to you is, as I was pushing these in, I found that it was extremely difficult to get the second one in because it's just the glue is so strong. And so I was able to hold this up, and then you can push in on this surface here. And that'll help you to get it seated in all the way. Because you do want these things to be in all the way, okay? And you see what's happening? It's wanting to kind of push back out. So that's where you have to make the tough call, like, is it worth doing something about, or do I just leave it? And a lot of it is, I think, air gets trapped in there, in addition to the glue and stuff. So if you tried to pinch this together with something, it's going to be very difficult to get this thing to hold together. So the options you're left with are to tape it together. So you have to decide if it's worth that to you. Because you see, this one here is all the way in. This one here is protruding out. Now that's tight. Watch what happens. See, it just works its way back out every time. So you'll have to either overwhelm it so it doesn't come back out, or you're going to have to tape it together if you want that to be totally seated in there. And this will impact the direction the plane wants to fly. So you're going to want to get that as close as possible. So I wanted to just review that real quick. You know what, guys? The finish on the wing is important to me, and I do care about it. But I probably care a little bit more about having those wings tight. So I'm going to encourage you to do something that you may decide you don't want to do, and that's going to be to tape those things together until such a time as we can ensure that those things are dry and secured. So I'm going to just do this carefully the way I'm going to do it. We've got the dihedral here, and so what I'm wondering about is if I can tape it from underneath. Boy, it feels like there probably could stand to use a carbon fiber rod or two there. Maybe some bamboo skewers or something like that that went through would be a good idea. That would help to resist it coming undone. Okay, the other option is you can just come back and periodically push this in until such a time as the glue is held so tight that it won't let go of it. Maybe we'll try that. Alright, good enough for me. We're not going to tape it. I don't want to screw up the finish if I don't have to. Alright, so the next step is we need to go ahead and hook up the elevators. Now, the elevators are going to be together like this, okay? So the only way to actually attach those is to go ahead and get the wing, which is sitting out in the other room. So I'm going to go grab that. We'll get the batteries ready and get the radio going. Alright guys, so I got a bunch of these extension cords and just stuck them together. And I ran it underneath the wing here, because the wing is so big it just makes it awkward to work on. So I'm going to grab this cable, and as you know from my wire cable management video, we can stick it in there to the elevator, and it goes bind, which is aux 2, then throttle, then aileron, then elevator. Okay, so it's plugged in there, and then this extension cord can run all the way over to where we're working. Obviously we're not going to have a long cord like that, but I don't know, it may behoove some of you to put a couple of cable lengths in there, and that way when you're working on the plane you can have the two pieces separated easily. Okay, so we'll stick that back down where it belongs. We'll go ahead and plug in our battery. We have our radio on already. Oops. That was kind of a oopsiekins. Airbus A380. Okay, so I just want you to see something. See how they're moving the wrong directions? That is so funny. That's because they mounted these backward from one another. Now there was a reason for that, and I'll explain what the reason was. The reason was, if this is a Televon configuration, then these would be treated separately. Now one could sit there and actually run these. That's always nice. Look at that. Why is it doing that? You see that? I need to know if this cable's bad or it's just not connected very good. Those are the types of things, when you see them, deal with them right away. And it's not the stabilizer either, you know that, because the stabilizer's over here. So we got all sorts of isolation. If we turn it all the way up, then you could move it by moving the wing, okay? But right now, it's making me nervous. I don't know what part's screwing up. This is pretty weak here, this connection point. Let me show you how to fix that real quick. I know these detours screw up our timing a lot, but they're helpful detours. So I'm going to get an X-Acto knife and a couple of screwdrivers. I'll be right back. Alright, so X-Acto knife. So we're going to demonstrate the problem one more time. Plug this in. That would suck if you were flying, okay? So now, why do we care? Because, I mean, we're not going to use this extension cord. That cord shouldn't matter. But it's not the cord that matters. It's this cord that does. And a couple of different ways you can do this. One, you could just swap this extension or this Y splitter. But I think what I might do is I'll just show you how to fix this, or likely how to fix it. I mean, I'm not sure this will take care of it yet. We'll try it first, though. Okay, so we'll pop that out. And you see you've got this little dinky thing in here, okay? There you go. And you can actually take and you can push this thing down, okay? Try not to stab yourself. That always ruins your day, especially when you're trying to use your hands for the rest of the day. Okay? And you're thinking, that ain't gonna make a difference. Well, you just wait and see, you naysayer, you. It will make a difference, and I will prove it. Well, I'll prove it as much as I can prove it on the video. It's the age-old dilemma. Do I let you see, or do I see? Okay, so I've pushed it down a little bit. Now watch this. Well, I'm not going to be able to do it from there. Sometimes you can do this without actually even pulling these things out. Okay? So I'll show you the alternative method. And that's going to be to pull it partially out. Okay? Sometimes it's hard to get these things all the way out. I don't usually have a big problem with it. Okay. You pull it back halfway like this. So you just got it exposed. And then you can push down right there. Okay? And then that'll push down so you got a little better bite on it. Then we're going to do the third one here. So we'll just lift up that tab. I'm going to go ahead and pull this one out if I can get it out easy. It is quite a bit easier to just pull the whole thing out, in my opinion. Okay, so pull that thing out. See what I did? Now watch this. Click it, test it. Brown to brown. Watch this. It's hard to plug in now. It's so much tighter. See? Fixed. Naysayer, you. Anyway, you'll run into that from time to time on these cheaper models. Fix it when you see it. I can't stress it enough. You have to do it right now or you will forget that. I guarantee it. I would have. You'll remember it as soon as the plane is going like just like that. So you'll remember at that point. You'll say, I should have tightened those things up. Alright, let's fix this now. This is a Phillips screwdriver. Now it doesn't matter which one you do, except that it sort of does, and I'll explain why. If you move this one, you have more than you need. If you redo this one, you'll have less than you need. So it's kind of a big deal you do this one, okay? So, remember my favorite tool in the world, guys? Forceps. Yeah, baby. And just pop this thing out. This little doohickey. I think it might be a servo. Yeah, it's a servo. Just kidding, guys. I know it's a servo. Alright, we're going to pop the other doohickey off. This control arm. So we'll just undo this one screw. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this magnet here. Dunk. Watch this. Awesome. That's so cool. Lay that to the side. Where'd the little black one go, guys? Are you kidding me? I gotta pause it and find that thing. Oh, it's right here. It was magnetically attached to my forceps. What are the chances, right? Okay, so now we can pop this off. Now we're allowed to move it free, okay? Which we're probably going to have to do some adjustments on this mechanical end here, because it's now going to be like way too long. And let's go ahead and flip the servo around. Now the other option is you can put a servo signal reverser in if you're like ultra lazy. And then you have one more point of failure, so if you go ahead and do that, I think you're a little bit nuts, but I can respect not wanting to do this if you don't like bending these control rods. Just do this so it's easier. Plus then you don't have to spend $2.99 or $3 or $5 or $7 or $100 or whatever it is you spend in your world for servo signal reversers. You can also reverse the signal on that servo if you just disassemble it. And here's how it goes. There's 3 wires that go to a trim pod. Okay? You don't know what they are. This is the order it was. That's the order it's going to be. Then take your motor leads. This is the order it was. That's the order it is. So you flip both and it will go the other direction. Try it, you Mr. Naysayer. Or don't. I don't care if you do. Mr. Naysayer's really bothering me tonight. Alright, here it is. Now we test the motion before we go any further to make sure it's going the same direction, all that good stuff. Now, hey, one other thing too, guys. You could put a reverse servo in there. But again, you have to have them set up hokey, and it's going to be kind of stupid. Son of a gun, you see what's going on here, guys? It's not working. What a pain in the buttutus. Okay, so that was an oversight on my brain. I apologize for the last 3 minutes of wasted time. Who am I kidding? You're watching this video series. It's been many, many minutes of wasted time. For the love of the hobby. Alright. So now it's time to get aggressive with this thing. So here's the next option that I have. Is... I think I'm gonna... I can go this way. Like that. Or like this, or something of the sort. But technically it would have to be like this, okay? And I'll just demonstrate for you real quick. Okay, so watch. Oh, that son of a gun. I don't want to have to reverse a signal servo signal. Let me pause it for a sec. Alright guys. That only took me a second, I promise. You can put the servos in the same orientation and it'll work. Okay, so you just drop them like this, and then, oh yes, looky that. So the only complication is that you do have to unglue them from this spot, and then I'll have to figure out how I'm going to secure this. To be honest with you, the other thing while you're at it, it might be a good time for you to address any sort of malfeasance here. And what I mean is, you've got this plastic guide, and you probably don't want that to stick out super far because it looks bad. So my plans are to probably cut a piece of wood that's going to go between those 2 points, but you could probably get away with just using a zip tie if you're into that sort of thing, which I'm tempted to be in that sort of thing right now because I just want to move on from this step. Okay, so we're going to put this back in. You don't even need to take the servo out. Just flip the control arm the other way. Well, except it was the other way too, which makes me think if our control rod's going to be too long, we may have to actually put it back in the original way, just so that we have the right reach. And it always seems like such an inconsequential thing until you're trying to get the output about the same, and then it all of a sudden gets complicated on you. So, or you can use the servo signal reverser if you're into that sort of thing. Okay. I'm sorry I missed that detail, guys. That was such an easy thing, and I just overlooked it. These things happen. Okay. Now I'm getting the hot glue gun warmed up, because when this is all said and done, I'll probably go ahead and put a little bit of hot glue on either side of those, just to really ensure that they stay put. It's important to stay put if you're a servo in a radio-controlled airplane, guys. Oh, I know why they're going the wrong amount, because I flip-flop these as well. Now I just got to make sure I'm not tangling them up inside. Okay. Okay, so you can see that we have approximately the same amount sticking out from the wing, which is what I was trying to even up. And also, of course, the direction of travel. That's the other big thing. Okay, so this one is going to that one, and that one is going to this one, which is what I want so that you have the straightest shot. It'll help to avoid other problems. Now, there is this hole here and this hole here. I'm a little bit tempted to see if I can get away with just using a zip tie, because all you're doing is bracing this from moving. Because what happens is if you don't brace them, then this will not be as resistant to movement, whereas this one will be. And that'll manifest itself as you're flying and you give it elevator, it'll want to roll one way or the other, and it'll be super annoying. And you'll think you need to trim it, and then you'll trim it, but you'll be trimming in an error, and it'll be really frustrating for you. So anyway, this is just, such is life. Alright, so we've got all this stuff screwed back in. The alternative method that you could use, it'd be super easy, would be like a popsicle stick. And all you have to do is just glue it in here. So I'm going to get something put together right now, and I'll show you how it turns out. Okay, so I looked for this piece of wood that was separating the ESCs, and you can see it's a little bit taller than the stock piece of wood. So I'm going to actually go for just a little something different. I have a planer, and so occasionally I'll do projects where I'll try to make a piece of veneer or whatever. And so I'm just going to use this, and it's going to work great, and I'm going to love it. So all we have to do is just get an approximate cut so that we can make our own little brace. And this is going to be nice and sturdy, but it will be a little bit heavier than it has to be. So everybody cover your ears. Okay, so once we have that in there, then we can kind of get an approximate spot for our marks. And when I say my marks, I mean I'm going to make a detent in there, just like the factory had done. So I might go ahead and grab a pencil so we can make that mark. And then we'll just use the Dremel style tool to cut those out. So we'll just make this even. And then we can make our little recess in 2 spots. Now, I'd really actually prefer to have a hole that I can slip these into, but it might be kind of a pain to work on stuff. So we can always go back and add the hole later. Okay, so here goes nothing, guys. Okay, so now this is going to have a right way and a wrong way, because it's got to favor over to this side, okay? So now the other thing is, this is a little bit heavier than it has to be, so we could probably trim it down just a little bit yet. Yeah, I'm going to trim it down some. I can just do it in the table saw real quick. But let me get this in here first and get my mark. So, it looks like we need to widen those up just a little bit too. So we'll just cut it there and there. Remember, this isn't a super critical piece, so it can be hollowed out to make it lighter. So I'm going to pause it and cut those 2 pieces. Alright guys, this is what I came up with. So I hollowed out 2 spots just to make it lighter. And this is just going to slide in here. And that's just going to shoot back into the plane like that. Jeez, it went way back in there too. There it is. Okay, so this is just going to go up in here. Okay, and you see how I'll have to press down, and then that snaps in. And the same thing here, but this one's going to be the one that positions us. Okay, so we'll snap it in, and of course the elevators can work. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get this glued, and then these are pressure fit, but we'll go ahead and put a little bit of glue on there as well. I'll probably hot glue those actually. Yeah, we might use 505 glue. 505 formula works good for this sort of thing. It stays flexible. It's called canopy glue. Formula 560. This stuff works pretty good for stuff that's just what they had used here. I guess I'm not really married to the idea of using that. You could probably get away with just a little bit of hot glue. But for the wood, we're going to use non-foam safe because it's not going to touch the foam. And we're going to use a little bit of kicker. We're just going to have that thing ready to go. Okay. Just get a little bit of glue in there. And a little bit of glue in there. Of course, it tried to stick me there. Why would it not, right? the super high quality wood glue joints from the factory have already broken. Okay. So we're going to come in here and glue that with CA as well. And we're just running this down. Screw it, I'm just going to glue it with CA. I don't want to waste my time on it. It's not really that critical. You just need it to be braced. And I'm going to run that down this seam here. And then down this seam here. Okay? Then we'll just come in here and we'll shoot a little bit there. We'll shoot a little bit there. Okay, really simple, nothing too fantastic going on there. And then we're going to let that work for a second. And that's going to be nice and sturdy. Okay. Okay, so now just making sure everything feels solid this direction. Now if you were concerned, you could brace in here, but I don't really think we're going to need that much more strength. We're good. We're plenty good. Alright, so now we need to hook up the elevators, and if I recall, they don't tell us in the manual which hole to put them in. So we're just going to put them in the lowest hole. Now I want this thing to be out so that if there's a failure, it's gonna be resistant to coming out. Okay, because these things want to be pulled over. Alright, so we'll put that in the bottom hole. We're not going to snap it shut because these things are atrociously difficult to snap shut. We're going to tighten this on a little bit. We're just going to tighten this on a little bit more. We're going to tighten it on a little bit more. And one more half turn. So just like that. And then I'm going to show you a trick that somebody recommended I use. And the trick was to use a chip clip, but I'm just going to use these because I don't have any chip clips in my shop. Okay, make sure it's not so strong that it's going to damage your foam. Okay. And if it is, then you can get a bigger piece of wood and separate that out so it doesn't bite into the foam. I'm just looking for something flat. Like a piece of wood would be just fine. So, or a piece of cardboard or something. So something like this would work, okay? And what you can do is you can clamp that onto the control surface. And I managed to find two pieces that are too big. Okay, so you can clamp that between the two surfaces. And that's going to give you a square point. But as you can see, this method works. But on this plane, it's just not really that critical. Because it was super easy to line it up. Okay? Man, those things are really hard to get in there. It's like strangely difficult. I don't know why it's so hard to do. Alright, so you get the idea there. Now let's test the elevator. So gorgeous. Call me crazy, but this one looks like it goes down just a touch further. And that's where the geometry starts getting complicated, or can. Okay, so our next step is going to be to try to snap these things in here. And I'm going to get it snapped in there. But I might need to use a tool because it's just really being resistant for some reason. Jeez, that was ridiculous. Can't believe how hard that was. I mean, it wasn't hard with the tool, but I just can't believe how hard it was to get it to go. So now, at this point, because the nature of this angle, I'm going to do something that some people might not necessarily agree with. So, those people should not do this on their own plane. Okay? I'm going to take this. I'm going to just give it a little bend. Just a touch. Okay? I did a little bit too much on this side. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to free up the friction so that when this action happens, we transfer more of the torque load into the movement of the surface instead of into pushing into the plastic here. Make sure that these things don't hit themselves. You see that, guys? Those are free, but this one's really close. Okay? It's not hitting though, so we're good. You want to watch out for that. The other thing that could be going on is these things might not be glued into the exact same spot. It would have been nice if they would have been, the control arms would have been pointed a little bit more at an angle. It would have helped some with this effect too. Now just a little bit of an inside bend. Okay? Now watch. Okay, just a little bit more inside bend. A little bit of outside bend. A little bit of inside bend. And a little bit of outside bend. Okay? So there you have it, guys. Now, if one of these servos ever fails, then I'm going to be tempted to take this out and do a notch right next to the other one and tie those mechanisms together so that it's one servo operating both, because it's a little bit safer bet in terms of if you have a failure. Okay, so we are done with the elevators, guys, or the horizontal stabilizer and elevator, whichever way you guys want to talk about them. That was pretty exciting. Now let's check the axis of the motion by turning our gain all the way up. Of course, everything's upside down and backwards, so it's a little confusing right now, but it's going to be a lot easier with the wing off. So I'm going to flip the fuselage over. So it's like this. It's in the same orientation as the wing. So if the nose went up, then you'd want to see the stabilizer. Watch this. I'll just move this out so I can show you. Okay, ready? So up. So from the tail, up is up, down is down. So that means if this wing or if this tail gets kicked up, it's going to resist. The stabilizer is. Okay? And then the ailerons, up, up, down, up, down. So you want it to go in the same direction as the impact from the environment. Alright, cool. And then we also just want to make sure that the elevator goes up, which it is, and down, which it is. Seems like we have that's all the way up, that's all the way down. Seems like it's fairly even. That should be fine for what we're doing here. And we haven't overdriven the servos either. So I think we're going to be okay. And to be honest with you, I think that's going to be the end of this video for the elevator. And the next thing we're going to come back and work on is we might be, well, we also have to get this servo attached at some point. But I think we'll go ahead and deal with that. Let's do it real quick. We'll see if we can add that in on this video. Because it's so soon. So we'll peel that off. And this is a long cable, which is nice, because this is going to need to go all the way back. And see, this is going to, of course, this is going to be sharing a Y cable with our rudder. So we're eventually going to have a servo wire that goes out to the back of the plane, and then we're going to plug this into the other half. So what we're going to do is we're going to shorten this extension cord a little bit so we can seal some of it for the other side. Okay. So in this case, we'll just hook it up alone. It doesn't really matter a lot how we hook it up because it's a temporary thing. Okay, so now this is the rudder. This looks like it went elevator then rudder. Let's make sure it's moving. I can hear it, so we're definitely getting signal there. So now I'm going to plug back in the elevator. It's always good to have all these different things hooked up at the same time so you can simulate the load, electrical loads, that you're going to experience during flight while you're on the bench. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't do more testing, of course, later, but... Okay, so now I notice this cable's coming around this way, and that looks really dumb. And so I'm going to grab the landing gear here and just use that to pop this servo. Why did they do that? That's so dumb. Okay, so I'm going to just pull the slack, and then we'll just tuck that on the side if it'll go. I'm beginning to understand why they did this. So I guess I'm going to stick this screwdriver in to make a gap. And I'm going to slip the wire down. Just getting down beyond where the wire needs to be, and I can just force this wire in there. Okay, once it's in there, then I can drop that down and then just force it down like so. Okay, so that looks a lot better already. Cool. Plus it buys us a little bit of distance. One other thing is, when we're all said and done with this, this will probably be glued down on the side opposite wherever the control arm is, to protect the wire so it doesn't interfere with the gear action. Okay, so rudder. Now the other thing is, if we end up putting the landing gear up here, I don't have to move this whole box, but I'll probably end up moving the whole box depending on how things go. I can also just put a bushing here that would receive the wheel, and we just make the linkage long enough to actually articulate the nose gear. Alright, so we've got that stuff all done for now, and I think we're going to go ahead and call it quits on this video. It's coming along, guys. This is going to be so cool when it's all done. I'm excited about it. I know we've got some things to work through, like making the landing gear look nice, getting some painting done, and I'm really excited to take it on. I'm hoping you guys come along for the awesome ride with the Airbus A380. So cool. Alright guys, come back for more. Check the link in the description. Help support the channel. Buy the stuff there. And we really appreciate you being a part of this experience. Maiden flight coming very soon. And when I say very soon, I'll be honest with you. It's possible it could be this weekend. But you never know. Depends on weather. Depends on how awesome the rest of this build goes.